All right, it is, again, 16:03, 4:03 p.m., calling the March 21st meeting of the Wolfeboro Police Commission to order. And at this time, I invite everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What? Had to do it.
Okay. First on our order of business, I would like to introduce everybody that is here presently for the television. To my far right, our Secretary, Amy Vicio. To my immediate right, our representative from the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Paul O'Brien. I am Commission Chair Steve Wood. On the phone in sunny Florida for a couple more weeks is Commissioner Joe Balboni. And to my left, Chief Rondeau, and to his left, Captain Livy. And at this time, I will entertain, Joe, a consideration of the minutes from February 21st, 2019.
Make a motion to accept minutes 21st.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Balboni to accept the minutes as written for February 21st. I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I also would like to just take a brief moment to explain that we do have a quorum. We do have a second commissioner on the phone, again from Florida. Our newest elected commissioner will be here shortly. There was a miscue in communication with timing. That's not his fault. So he will be joining us shortly, and we will introduce him at that time. Chief, if you'd like to proceed with the monthly activity reports.
I would. Thank you very much. So, referring to the first slide in your slide deck, you're going to see the incident reports year to date. So we're up 33.33% from January, from 33 arrests to 44 in the month of February. Total offenses is 90. So just breaking that down for all the folks listening at home, you had multiple offenses in each one of those 44 incidents. So an incident probably has, multiple charges connected to it. That gets to the 90 offenses, and that's typical. Usually, when one crime is being committed, there are other crimes. Moving to the next slide, Commissioner, is the arrest year to date 2019. So for the month of February, we're up from 22 to 30. That's a 36.36% increase. And then you have your background information there, and that is a 6-page report that you'll see, a 7-page report that you'll see. Moving to collisions 2019, we had a 66.66% decrease in the month of February from 15 in January to 5 in February. I just want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the reduction in traffic crashes. So we have been realizing a fairly significant reduction, even though from time to time it may seem that we have a spike or two. Over the last, say, 10 or 15 years, certainly over the last 20 years, we've seen a real reduction in traffic crashes. And it's been a long, hard process to get us to that point in time. And I attribute that to our inculcated approach relative to traffic stops and warnings, the educational aspect of warnings. Now, there are some people, and I've heard some criticisms, that would say, hey, why are you guys giving out so many warnings? Warnings don't work. You shouldn't do warnings, so forth and so on. No, warnings work. There's value in every motor vehicle stop. There's value in every police citizen contact. And our officers, are instructional. I've heard Some people say that our officers are didactic. And that may be true because they're trying to drive home a few points, right? And this is an inculcated approach to traffic safety and traffic enforcement. And this has significantly contributed to a downturn in motor vehicle crashes. This time last year, Mr. Chairman, you probably remember we had 0. In fact, we had 0 traffic crashes for 3 months in a row. And then, of course, we shot up to about 15. The point being is that directed patrol tasks and visibility and DWI patrols and speed enforcement patrols and the radar trailers and all of these things and our constant media campaign to reduce speeds, aimed at reducing traffic crashes, have all had a positive benefit. And so as Selectman O'Brien would say, I'm always looking for better outcomes over time, right? That's really the key to victory. And I happen to agree with that, and we're seeing it right now. And you're going to continue to see these numbers get smaller and smaller and lower and lower. Obviously, we recognize that one crash is one too many. We understand that. But I do remember days when you were a commissioner, sir, and you probably remember these days as well, we would never get off South Main Street. The crashes, and I remind you that you were a captain on the fire rescue squad. You were responding as much to these crashes as I was. So there were days that we never got off of South Main Street, especially during the bad winter storms.
This is what I find remarkable about, even 5 in the month of February, given the specific type of winter that we've had this year. I think conditions road-wise have been a lot more slippery than in past years. And we have a much larger volume of young, inexperienced drivers these days than what we had back in those days. And we're still realizing that we're making a difference. And I think that's
exactly
amazing.
Exactly. And that's my point. And so we're going to continue. We're going to continue along this, and we're going to keep doing what we've always done. The grants will be starting up again. The directed patrol tasks have been issued, and I think we're doing well. And so this is a prime example of how the highway safety grants have been working to our benefit, right? And we talk about wanting a clean, safe, family-friendly environment. This is one of the tools, the highway safety grants and the directed patrol task, one of the tools, the methods that we'll use to get to that to that objective. Moving on with the background.
Chief, 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief. So when you say crashes, just for clarity here, these are an individual operator hitting something, or is this 2 motor vehicle? Do you somehow discriminate between one versus the other?
Well, in the reports we do, but when a crash is any time a vehicle is you're colliding into something else, whether it's a single motor vehicle crash or a double motor vehicle crash, could be into a stone wall or a telephone pole or a building or another motor vehicle.
Well, the reason I ask is I don't see in your report whether, I hate to do this, whether we're hitting a tree or whether we're hitting each other.
Right, that's not reflected in the report.
Okay.
That is.
And roughly speaking, how many of them we're hitting each other versus hitting a tree? Roughly speaking?
It's just property damage over $1,000.
Pardon?
It's property damage over $1,000, depending if it's the car that's property damage or a building or...
It's not a reportable accident unless...
We don't break it down that way.
There's no... Out of those, what you see there, the 5, I can't tell you that unless I'd go deeper into it.
Okay. I was just kind of wondering out loud, how many of these we have 2 motor vehicles engaging obviously inappropriately with each other?
The software...
Or do we have motor vehicles going off the road and hitting something?
A vast majority... So on that particular report, I can't tell you off the top of my head because I don't have that data, but I would tell you that a vast majority of those are vehicles colliding into one another.
Really?
Yes, a vast majority. And that would be typical of any month. Now, what we could do for you, if you wanted, at the end of the year, we could give you as an interesting statistic. We could certainly break it down for you and say, in the calendar year, going back into 2018, we can do the research and say, of the couple hundred motor vehicle crashes, 198 were dual or triple motor vehicle crashes.
I don't need to know.
If you need that, okay.
It's important for you to manage your department differently.
Yeah. We can break it down when you get really deep into it.
Yeah, just so you know, what triggers a mandatory reporting, right? So there's mandatory reporting and reports that are not mandatory. But what triggers a mandatory reporting is just what the captain said: a property damage over $1,000 cumulative. So not to one vehicle or another, but the whole incident. And as you know, it doesn't take much right now to get over $1,000. You can do that with a bumper on some of these vehicles. The next slide in your slide deck is the background data, and it's going to list out where the crashes occurred. No mystery there. It's all the normal, usual suspects. And just so we know, right, Wolfeboro PD, Mr. Chairman, we practice DDATs, right, data-driven operations. And you're going to hear, that's a buzzword. You're going to hear that time and time again. We've been doing that. We did that under Chief Chase. And this is where you're going to see the vast majority of our traffic enforcement is occurring on these roads, right? Center Street, North Main Street, South Main Street, and in this particular case, we had one crash on Wamback Road. And the reason that the usual suspects get all the police enforcement, or a vast majority of our police enforcement or directed patrols, is because these are repetitive, right? These are the recidivists, and we're trying to slow that down. We're trying to limit that. We're trying to drive those numbers down to zero.
So, looking at this, the accidents by street name slide, I'm seeing only 4 accidents, and the total is 5, but I only see 4.
The total's 5.
But there's only 4 named.
1 on Center, 2 on North Main, 1 on South Main, 1 on Wamback.
I apologize. I never said I was a math whiz. I looked at that quick and I thought it was 4. I apologize. My bad. And a sleepless night. Okay. Please continue.
So getting back to next slide, gentlemen, on your slide deck is the traffic stops year to date, and you'll see we came down a little from 238 to 170, and that's a decrease of 28.57%. And there's any number of different reasons why traffic stops have reduced. Now, in the month of February, you can imagine as well, you just pointed out, the weather was sloppy. The weather was bad, right? There was a lot of bad inclement weather. And obviously the officers, my guidance to the officers is before you start stopping a vehicle going from A to B, you make sure that you've got some really good reason. Typically, violation of the law is a good reason why you're stopping that vehicle. I want you to have a really, really good reason. Okay, we just don't arbitrarily stop vehicles, and we don't do that. We stop vehicles if there's a motor vehicle infraction. We witness some infraction of the motor vehicle law, or some other reason which falls into the category called articulable suspicion. Not probable cause, but articulable suspicion. Any reason why we're pulling this vehicle over that could be articulated to a magistrate.
Okay. Ron has a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll repeat it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ron. So there was a question, Chief, asked by Mr. Goodgame, and this is for the benefit of the public. Mr. Goodgame's question was, do we have some attribution of these crashes to potholes or other impediments in our town's infrastructure, ruts in the streets, things of that nature? Are you watching that?
Yes. So we, in the reports that are generated in a typical crash report, there's an awful lot of data that's collected, tremendous amount of data that's collected in these reports, and you know, the causation of the crash is always documented, and there's on the left and right-hand side of the reports, there's a number that corresponds to road conditions and so forth and so on, and that's where it would be documented.
Chief,
Now,
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the point of Mr. Goodgame's question was, we've had this year several car tires blown and maybe some wheels damaged in the process with some of our potholes, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he agrees with me. That is the point of his question. Not so much of it attributed to an accident, but if those people are filing accident reports, if there's enough aggregate damage to make an accident filing on that.
It doesn't, unfortunately, a blown tire, pop tire is not going to be over $1,000, so it's not going to be anything that's crash related in a report for us to take.
But I can answer.
I'm sorry. Do they report it? Yes. And do we give it to DOT? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And does it get to our highway department?
Yes.
Okay.
But I know the state has been out.
Absolutely.
That's correct, and I will tell you that one of the roads that I recently, and I've heard from a citizen who was complained about it, is North Wolfeboro Road. It's in terrible condition, absolutely terrible condition. And if you remember correctly, I think it was about a year ago, you had asked, Mr. O'Brien, you had asked me to document where some of the worst town roads were, and that was on my list. Now, it was my understanding that road was scheduled for repair, and I did see our highway crews out there earlier this past fall. But I will tell you that road is in terrible, terrible condition. But just, Mr. Goodgame, one thing I do want to bring up is that our town folks, our highway department, will not work on the state roads. Okay, that's the purview of state DOT. So, you know, North and South Main Street, 109 East, 28, so forth and so on, that's the responsibility of the highway department. Where our folks will work are the town roads, like Wambach Road or Elm Street or Central Ave or something like that, or, you know, Stoneham Road or College Road, for example. Portions of Pork Hill Road up to the Ospey Town line. They'll work on the town roads, but they won't work on say, you know, Center Street, right? That's 28. That's the state's responsibility.
Okay. All set? Okay. If you would continue, Chief, with the monthly reports, please.
Pardon?
If you would continue with the monthly reports.
Yes, sir. So moving on with the traffic stops, you'll see we had 170 that we were down 28%. I know this is Commissioner Goodgame's favorite slide, that there were 7 tickets given out for the month of February at 4.11. That meant that you had a 4.11% chance of getting a ticket, so that's actually pretty good. The personnel analysis report is the next slide in your slide deck. You'll see the men's activities, or correction, the officers' activity up to that point. And you'll see those numbers are still pretty healthy for this point of this time of the year for the reporting month of February. The background data for all of the motor vehicle stops and what they were for and where they occurred is provided as part of your background data there, and you'll see exactly how much was meted out in fines and penalties. Moving on to the next report in your slide deck, you'll see the school resource officer report from Officer Llewellyn. Just picking out some of these, the highlights here, you know, you'll see where he had 3 arrests for possession of tobacco and other drugs up at the high school. You'll see the number of court appearances he's had throughout the course of this past month. And also, I think, are very important is the parental context and counseling sessions at 7. And the number of investigations for assault and disorderly conduct and so forth are there. Those are kind of important. This report really reflects, I think, just how busy the school resource officer is, and why it's a good thing that we have him up there. He's certainly doing an awful lot of work up there. He's engaged every moment of every day, and if we didn't have him up there, we would be pulling that duty officer off the road. They might as well just park the cruiser up at the.
Well, and I know we had this discussion last month too, and I believe it was Mr. Goodgame that had brought it up, that, and we are keeping our, our eyes on the school complex, because eventually there's going to be a need to have an additional SRO just to keep up with everything, because the student dynamic has changed. And
so, moving on to the next report, you're going to see the detective. Yes, sir.
The question is being asked if the report submitted by the school resource officers also forwarded to the Governor Wentworth Regional School District.
This report doesn't go to the school, but all of the incidents and things that he does gets reported to the school. This report is a summary of his activity for me, my purposes. But so I think this would, I'm not sure what good it would do going to the district, because they know what he's doing.
Well, here's what I was thinking. That report is concise, one page. If you have multiple incidents, and those incidents are reported to the school, scattered, as opposed to the impact that single page report makes, might consider it
The audience.
We can certainly, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I can certainly forward this to.
No, and I think that's a
Superintendent.
very valid comment, because, you know, what the principal of the high school sees the SRO doing in terms of his work volume is different than what even the middle school in an adjoining building, what the principal is witnessing there. Those two may not know the workload in the other schools, other than the fact that, well, the SRO isn't over here right now because he's either there, could be next door at Carpenter School or at Crescent Lake.
Yeah, I have no problem sharing it with the school superintendent.
Yeah, I'd like to second what Mr. Goodgame said. I mean, and I don't know how to run the school, but I think the school would love to see something that would share with them where there are chronic issues. And a one-page summary of the report will point out the chronics, the things that are just repetitive, whether it be, you know, someone's consuming alcohol or whatever it is, chronic issue. Whereas a report by our SRO that says, yesterday I had to, you know, have a student in custody for an issue, that comes and goes, and then a couple of days later, same issue. But it doesn't form a chronic pattern. I think that's a smart idea. If you can do it, that would be great.
No, I'm in total agreement with that. Information sharing is easy, and we have a great relationship with the superintendent's office, and I'm sure Kathy will be happy to get this report.
Leslie, you had a question?
Yes. So the suggestion is it goes to the superintendent and then off to the school board? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send it to the superintendent's office. They can,
Right.
yeah. That I'm not going to share anything with the school board.
Right. Let them
That's the superintendent's call.
Yeah, right.
But I don't mind sharing it with the school officials. Absolutely not. It's a great idea. Oh, consider that done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, the next report is the detective's report. One thing I just want to talk a little bit about is we had to pull the detective back into patrol over these last couple of months. He's been doing double duty. He's been working in patrol and trying to get his investigative cases done. And that's a simple reflection that we had 2 officers out. One had moved on to another agency, and one officer was out for maternity leave. And so that put a little cramp in the Wolfeboro Police Department. So we're a little short on investigative staff. He has been moving forward in getting things done. We have been receiving some complaints from folks that were complaining that we're not moving as fast as we normally do. And I would say, yep, absolutely, I got it. And we're working through the issue. We should be back up to full strength, reasonably speaking, on or about 1 April. And then that same entity said, you ain't got enough guys. And I said, well, yeah, you're right. You know, you need more men. Yeah, we do. I got it. Thank you. So the point being is that this shows that when we have these nuances, these little nuances that occur, it has an impact, and people see the reduction in service, and they're not happy with it. And I'm just bringing it to the Commission's attention to let you know that I am working through the problems, and we're doing the best we can, and a lot of shifts are being covered on overtime. And 1 April, we should be back to normal, at least temporarily, and we'll do the best we can. So having said that, you'll see the detective's report for the month of February. 6 cases were carried over from January. He's investigated a total of 7 new cases for 13, total of 13 cases now on his desk. Now, these represent, by the way, some of the most serious cases that we do investigate. These are all either very significant misdemeanors or felonies. I just want to let the Commission know that we did work with the U.S. Marshals Service and arrested 2 people, one wanted by the federal government, the other wanted by us, that had been on the lam for quite some time. So that was a great operation. That occurred last Monday. So the detective was obviously involved in that along with Sergeant Maloney and some of our other staff members, and the officers did a great job. And they put that operation together over the course of the weekend, and then executed on Monday. So everything went well, and we're moving forward. So again, you'll see some of the percentages there. 17% cases closed this month. And percent of arrests in criminal cases closed this month is 39. You'll see some of the more significant cases that he's working right there, and I think you can see that these are clearly felony type matters. The background data is provided for your review. If you wanted to break it out by month, year to date. That completes the slide deck.
Okay, at this time, I would like to welcome newly elected Commissioner Bob O'Brien again. There was a snafu in scheduling, and on behalf of the Commission, I apologize for that, but we welcome you to the Wolfeboro Police Commission, and we look forward to serving with you over the next 3 years.
Well, I apologize. It was my mistake.
Not a problem.
I was working over a whole lot of material I just received.
We do have Commissioner Balboni on the phone from sunny Florida, so we've been able to maintain a quorum. We have just completed the monthly reports. I'd be happy to go over those with you, or the Chief will after. And that microphone is on. Okay. So at this time, Chief, if you'd like to move on with your monthly report.
Thank you, sir. Under the budget, the command staff conducted 2 internal FY19 budget reviews this past month. The first one was a look at the budget pre-election. The second was post-election. The purpose of this was to ensure that the PD's budget is correct after the town adjustments. The budget based on the FY 2019 election results is what I'm referring to. So the way that works is you have the first 13 weeks, which is the budget that that we're still in presently, and then the town vote. We have to wait for that one way or the other, and then what happens is the operational budget then gets loaded. Our portion of that budget gets loaded into our 2019, and that comprises the 2019. So we want to make sure that the pre-election budget and the post-election budget are essentially correct. We'll continue to work the issues with town administration as they work through that process. As you know, the budget is a complex process, and human mistakes can occur. We want to avoid, or at the very least, mitigate these errors when they occur. So more to follow on that. Under Personnel Officer Chris Dustin has been sworn in and hit the road this week, replacing Officer Mike Fenton, who left to take a sergeant's position in Wakefield. We wish Godspeed to Officer Dustin as he prepares himself for the full-time academy in August. Actually, it's 3 September. And we wish Sergeant Fenton fair winds and following seas as he rejoins his comrades in the Wakefield PD. Good luck to both of these fine officers. And Mike, just so we're clear on this, Mike left for no other reason other than to take a job promotion. And I can't fault anybody for doing that. And I know he left with a heavy heart. I know he did speak to the captain, and he's staying on with us in a part-time capacity. So that's really good, and we're really happy to have him as a part-time officer. Operations in terms of prosecution, it was a short month this month due to snow days and holidays and a short schedule issued by the courts. That being said, 10 defendants responded to 10 charges. Of those 10 charges, 8 individuals were found or pled guilty, and 1 was placed on file pending good behavior for 6 months or more, with diversion and education components added to that person's sentence. Lastly, 1 case was null prost, that means withdrawn by the state, as the defendant refused to complainant, refused to testify and recanted his or her testimony against the defendant. The conviction rate this month, because of that case, is 90%, with approximately $3,038 in fines, penalties, and restitutions meted out. Working with our partners in the Lakes Region Hazardous Waste Program, the PD conducted a drug take-back event at the All Saints Episcopal Church on 16 February. The event went from 0800 to approximately 1,300 hours. All went well, and we took back approximately 35 gallons of unwanted pharmaceuticals and other controlled drugs. These drugs will later be turned over to the DEA and destroyed. The next DEA collection is 27 April 2019 at the Wolfeboro PD. This event will essentially be an all-day event, so please come on in and drop off your unwanted pharmaceuticals, and let's keep them out of our landfills, our water supplies, our lakes, streams, and let's keep them, more importantly, from being diverted and onto the streets where someone can get hurt or addicted. Thank you very much. Early this March, 1 March 2019, I conducted a training class with CERT, that's our Community Emergency Response Teams, in Moultonborough from 18:30 till 21:30 hours. I teach the blocks of instruction on terrorism and other CBRN, that's chemical, biological, nuclear, and radiological threats. Teams are federally funded and certified through FEMA training programs through FEMA grants. These teams form an integral part of our county's volunteer emergency response efforts should a disaster or bad event befall the area. This year we will be working with these volunteers even more closely than ever, and we will be bringing some of them in to assist us during our busy 4th of July festivities. More to follow on this, so stay tuned. And this is as a result of Commissioner Goodgame's excellent recommendation last month about getting more volunteers involved in assisting the Wolfeboro Police Department. So that did not fall on deaf ears. And if you're interested in being a CERT team member, I want you to please contact Jane or Jeff, the Carroll County Coalition for Public Health, at 603-301-1252, extension 304. That's 603-301-1252, extension 304. And Alyssa, I'll make sure you have that phone number so you can put it in the paper. Thanks. So moving on, Mr. Chairman, speed issues continue to be a problem in our community. So I'm asking all to please pay attention to the posted speed limits on our town roads, our highways and byways. Speed complaints represent some of the most common quality of life issues we receive at the PD. Please be courteous of your friends and neighbors and guests and don't speed. We will be monitoring our roads very carefully, as we do every year. If you are speeding, please slow down. The life you save may be your own. That being said, the department is continuing its enhanced speed enforcement operations in the following areas: Forest Road, Cotton Valley and College Road areas, Beach Pond Road with a focus on the area between Pine Hill Road and North Line Road, Center Street, North Main Street, 109 East and Sewell Road. And also we're going to be looking at Wambach Road. As you know, we had one crash on Wambach Road just the other day. The reason for these speed enforcement operations is due to citizen complaints and data collected and analyzed by our radar trailers and our radar warning signs. We will continue our efforts in these areas until we are sure that speeds have come down. If you travel these roads, please be mindful of the speed limits. Also, please keep in mind that after the long winter we just had, the roads are showing signs of disrepair due to frost heaves, water runoff, and other cold and seasonal issues. This is common, and it will be repaired, and is what we have come to expect living in the Northeast. When you travel, please keep this in mind and drive slowly until our very talented highway crews can get out there to repair this damage. It does not take much for a car to sustain steering or wheel damage due to hitting one of these holes or ruts caused by the snow-thaw cycle. And thank you very much. As you know, the budget did pass, and so we're in the process now of making sure that that gets loaded in correctly to the PD's fiscal year 19 budget. Training this month, Mary Swift attended a one-day supervisory course at Primex. That's our insurance carrier, and that's focused on liability mitigation. Yes, sir.
Mr. Goodgame?
Isn't it true that your report on the website?
No. No.
Well, Amy, are those posted when the minutes are posted on the website?
Minutes are posted, and so the chief's report's been for the minutes for.
And so that is included, it's on the website? Okay, so that already has been done because of the original suggestion to add that to the minutes. When the minutes are posted on the website, so is the chief's report.
So Mr. Goodgame asked that you consider, as you begin your report, to remind the viewers that the document is up on the town's website for their reading pleasure.
Yes, yeah, I was aware that it was part of the minutes, and it's on the website, but it's not on, I think you said on my website.
The town website.
Yeah. Yes, it is on the commission website. It's not on. I don't post it on our Facebook page or our web page. I just don't do that.
And also, the suggestion was made that you articulate that fact verbally. That when you're done with your reports, that they are on the website. Either you can do that, or the chair can do that, whatever. But
Ron was saying, just remind people, every time you do this, just say you can find this. It'll start a process of folks being able to find this, which is good, because it is good stuff. I mean, it's very illuminating and very clear.
And the point really being that this
We can certainly, yeah, I have no problem with that. That's easy to do. I can certainly put the on our police webpage, Mr. Chairman, I can easily put where we're going to be doing our speed enforcement operations.
Well, I think between the local newspaper, between the website, and by this very video presentation on community television, that an effort is being made to put this information out there. Now, if people aren't watching television or reading anything, then that's. I mean, we're doing the best that we can.
Yeah, what we will do,
information out there.
Commissioner Goodgame, what we will do is put it on our Facebook page, which gets infinitely more hits than my website, my webpage. So yeah, well, we can easily do that. I think that's a fantastic idea. So, say again. No, I agree with that. Anything we can do to get the word out there, and actually, it just makes it easier. It makes it easier for us too. That if we do get a speeder out there, say, look, we've gone way overboard on getting this information out there. You really have no leg to stand on, so to speak. I hate to.
Good job.
Say it like that, but we've been begging you to slow down for the last couple of years, and the information is really everywhere. So I have no problem doing that. I think it's a good idea.
I could interject also that one of the important things is when people are approaching the radar trailer, they understand that that's being analyzed and it's a consequence for speed, and that can also induce traffic enforcement. Again,
yes, it can.
Good outcome.
Yes, it can, and in fact, I'll tell you right now, so we have the radar trailer, which will be coming out probably next month. And then we have the radar warning signs. And the interesting thing is, those are some very sophisticated, pardon me, pieces of equipment. They collect a tremendous amount of data. It's really good stuff. And they produce charts and all sorts of things. They can really narrow down where the problem times are. And we, again, getting back to data-driven operations, we use that to hone in where we're having particular problems, whether it's 109 East or whether it's North Main Street and between what locations. And each one of those devices has a GPS inside, so it tells us exactly longitude, latitude, where it is, so we can track, well, we know we have a problem between these 2 points or these 3 points, for example. Just really good tools for law enforcement to have. And that's what drives a lot of our operations and speed enforcement and so forth. So, yes, the equipment is coming out. What you said, Commissioner, there are definitely consequences to bad driving, to speeding, for example, in a particular case. And it could be something as simple as you're going to be spoken to. And you might have to go through one of these didactic lectures. Or, of course, it could be something you're receiving some sort of punitive fine, and which we try to stay away from as much we can, but sometimes it's just unavoidable. So moving on, if we're done, does that help you, sir? Moving on, Sergeant Strzok attended a 3-day supervisor training program with the Granite State Police Career Counseling Services. Dispatch had nothing significant to report in the way of training this past month. Outreach and matters of interest. I spoke at Brewster Academy's civil rights class on 28 February this past month, just before the students went to the state of Alabama to study the civil rights movement there during the 60s and 70s. I think the students enjoyed the lecture. I know I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed interacting with them before the trip. And so that was good. I know I spoke to them when they came back. They had a wonderful time down there, and they said that a lot of the information that I put out during the lecture actually came up during their various visits, and they knew they were well prepared. They knew all about it. So that made me feel really good that the lecture hit home and it hit the points that they were looking for. This past month, officers, dispatchers, and staff, specifically Mike Strzok, Sergeant Strzok, Dispatch Supervisor Mia Lyons, and our Executive Administrative Assistant Sherry Moore attended Career Fair Day at the Kingswood Regional High School. Perhaps you saw the photos of the event. As always, K9 Riggs stole the show. Fun was had by all, and officers and dispatchers enjoyed interacting with the young men and women considering law enforcement and public administration as a career, and we wish them always the very best in their endeavors. Also, this past month, the captain and I spoke on Wolfeboro Community TV, and the captain and I continue to be regulars at the men's breakfast meetings each month. Well, the captain and I continue to be a presence at the Board of Selectmen meetings and the CIP meetings and other town committees as requested or required. I continue to serve on both the Governor's Committee for the Humane and Ethical Treatment of Animals and serve on Senator Bradley's legislative committee seeking to strengthen the state's animal cruelty laws. And I did have one meeting with the Governor's Council this past month, and I also spoke at UNH to their law students relative to animal cruelty investigation and the need to strengthen the state's animal cruelty law. So that was good. That was a well-attended event, by the way. The captain continues to be part of the master planning process and the technical review and joint loss committees, and I know he really enjoys that thoroughly. And lastly, please be our guest on Coffee and Connections with the Chief. As always on that program, coffee's on me, and come on down. Just contact Tim or Peter at Wolfeboro Community TV and let them know you want to be a guest on that show, and they'll let you know when and where we're filming. And you can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about Fourth Amendment issues or First Amendment issues or Second Amendment issues, or we can talk about the New England Patriots, whatever you want to talk about. And as always, coffee's on me. So safety tip of the month. While driving, continue to keep an eye out for poor road conditions as the winter abates and spring thaws arrive. Continue to watch for poor ice conditions if you're out in the areas. If you have equipment out on our areas, ponds and lakes, spring is arriving and the ice is melting, so get that equipment off the lake and on your own property where it belongs, or else it'll be washed up on on the shore here shortly. So spring is on the way. Mr. Chairman, subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Lister, did you have any questions for the chief based on any of the information he gave you or gave out?
I can't hear you.
It's going to be updated. You talking about our webpage roster? Yeah, so it's actually going to be, we just talked about it today in a staff meeting. It's going to get updated. We had to wait for the town. They were all meeting with the town. Did you know that? About the web pages? Mia was going to meet with, I thought it was you.
Yes.
Yes.
You are correct.
Yeah, there was a little issue putting pictures and photos on it, so we couldn't update it.
We have a plan scheduled to do that.
Yes.
One second, I'll
Okay.
the question that was asked by Alyssa Barquette from the Granite State News was about the updating of the current department's roster with photos, ranks, and names of department personnel, which makes her job easier when she's reporting to the community about specific events or other times that she's involved with the police department personnel. And that question was answered, I think, satisfactorily. Okay.
Yeah, it should be updated by the...
And that will be updated very shortly. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the commissioner's items. At this time, I would like to engage Commissioner Balboni, Commissioner O'Brien. As per our policies and procedures, we take the first meeting following the annual vote, and we elect a chair for the coming year. So I will entertain a motion for a chair and hopefully a second or a counter, whatever. So
I'll make a motion if he would be chairman of all Fisher.
Okay, Commissioner Balboni has made a motion to have me, Commissioner Steve Wood, remain as chair for the coming year. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second that.
Seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. O'Brien, do you have any words of wisdom from the Board of Selectmen?
I don't know if they're wise words. The budgets are passed, as the chief has said. You're now free to go get yourself your police car, which is good, and your tasers. And just as the ink is dry on the 2019 budget, we're going to start winding up the 2020. John McDonald has called for a budget committee meeting next week, which I just can't wait to attend. We're going to go through looking at our budgets and starting all over again. So I hope for all of us that we can learn from what we had last year. There's some things we need to get back to the budget. We have some O's. We owe the budget committee some clarity on things from the town, and I think from the police department. I want to get those things out of the way so they don't become issues we have to talk about again. I'd much rather go find new problems to solve. So that's going to go on. The auditors are in right now doing the annual audit process. That's always a fun thing to do. They're going to go through and look at every transaction that we've undertaken in this town. So they don't do just a cursory audit. They kind of deep around into everything we do, which is the right thing to do in this day and age. So that's good. Nothing earth-shattering in terms of events going on, other than we got a lot of potholes to fix. We got an $800,000 roads budget to get going. We got just a bunch of things to get underway, and we have to make sure that everything gets done on time. So that's my report, sir.
Okay. One thing that I failed to mention during the commission item, I'd like to wish our esteemed chief, Dean Rondo, a happy birthday. I'm not going to comment on how old you are, but on behalf of the commission, we wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Birthday to you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Commissioner Emeritus Ron Goodgame up here to join us at the table. He would like to address the commission and I believe the town.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With my role as a police commissioner now having drawn to a close, I want to thank Steve Wood, Joe Balboni, and our assistant Amy Muccio for the opportunity to have served with you. It was a pleasure and an honor. We didn't always agree, but we agreed we could disagree with civility, understanding, and respect. I wish there were more of that in the world today. It was not without a great deal of thought and consideration that I decided not to seek re-election to the Wolfeboro Police Commission. It was time for new blood, new ideas, and getting my health back in order. When I first started on the commission, I had a full head of hair. Where did it go? But if you take a look at Chairman Wood, you will see he's compromised also. And Joe Balboni has really got a fire break going. That's what the commission will do to you if you take it seriously. And seriously, this commission of which I was a part has had a tremendous run, and I'm proud of our accomplishments. It's been an honor to serve. I told the chief the other day that I'm proud to say we hired or promoted most every one of our current officers. We have a splendid and very professional police department and central dispatch in Wolfeboro. And I'm proud to have been on the commission with Messrs. Wood and Balboni for these last many years. Our efforts have been directed at helping our department be the best. Community policing, as now we know it, has created trust and promoted a feeling of safety and care for the well-being of our citizens. These efforts of our commission in working with Chief Rondo and Captain Libby must continue to be paramount in its guidance to the police department. I am confident that the addition of Bob O'Brien to the commission will aid in those efforts. And for the record, I'm not going to fade away. I'll be watching. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Ron, thank you.
And now my hair is growing back.
Ron, I'd like you to, if you would be so kind, to come to our meeting in May, so we have a chance to properly thank you for your years of service. Obviously, given the short time frame, we haven't had time to do all that we'd like, but we would like you to come back so that we can...
Will the check clear?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sure.
It'll be in the mail.
Thank you. In May?
June, July, sometime, yes.
You don't want me here in April.
Okay.
It's not.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to enter into non-public session under RSA 91-A, paragraph B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. Is there anything else that we need to address, or is that talking personnel issues?
Yeah, personal.
Okay.
I make a motion to go non-public.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Balboni to enter into non-public session with a second from Commissioner O'Brien. I will poll. You may ask a question. So it will be so, yes, absolutely. And thank you again. So polling the commission, Commissioner Balboni, enter into non-public session. Joe?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Commissioner O'Brien?
Second.
And Commissioner Wood is a yes. So we stand in recess momentarily before we enter non-public session to clear the room.